Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. And yes, another double edition at that, as we've been having all this week and all last week, because there's so much happening as we're here now in Q3 2020. What does that mean? Well, Q3, quarter three, is that rounding of the corner towards the end of the year. This is when a lot of activity happens in venture capital. We're all coming off generally a summer vacation or the summertime, which can be a little quieter, but Q3 leads into a very active Q4 and a very active end of the year. So we continue to bring double episodes to you every single day here on VCTV with investors from all around the world to talk about several different subjects. So you can be ready, or as investors, you can get prepared to know how and look and where to look for those new deals and potential opportunities. But today, we are starting off looking at the industrial side of things. What traditionally has been the not so attractive, the not so exciting areas of opportunity, but now our core infrastructure to so much that we're doing, and also huge areas of opportunity, whether you are building or whether you are investing. So we're talking about the industrial 4.0, the fourth wave of industry, as some refer to it, but industry 4.0. This is the advancement of those core infrastructures, things like manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, robotics, and so much more. We're going to talk about that with our investors today. So get ready, make sure you have your questions set up and get ready to drop them in. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in today, audience. We're super excited to have you back. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them into the chat box. We'll do our best to ask them in real time. If not, the investors and I are all available 24/7, 365 online. Be happy to continue the conversation with you. If you like what you hear today, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. If you're an investor and you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out to Elena, to the entire LATOKEN team, and or myself, and we'd love to find the right fit for you. And entrepreneurs, continue to say this, and I'll say it again. This is not just a stage for investors. This is also a stage for you. If you'd like the chance to jump up on our virtual stage and pitch us as investors along with our live audience, do reach out. We'd love to give you the opportunity. And also a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LATOKEN team for always making VCTV possible every single day on your screen, your device, wherever you may be in the world, whether that be at the beach, in your library, or somewhere else as well. And with that, I'm Kyle Lacotte, your host. Let's get started. We've got some great investors who've joined us from around the world in their respective locations today. Even though we might tease them at how good they look, we are happy that they've taken the time to join us. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it off. Gianpaolo, welcome back. See, you've got to change the setting today. A little intro, a little background.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kyle. Ladies and gentlemen, good day, everyone. My name is Gianpaolo Parigi. I am a former investment banker, serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist. I'm on the board of a U.S. asset manager. I'm the chairman of a single family office. And I've been investing in manufacturing, in the maritime industry and infrastructure, renewable energy, real estate, and a number of other sectors. And I've been advising on countless more. I'm very happy to be on this panel today. And Kyle, back to you.
Thank you, sir. We're happy to have you. Alessandro, welcome back as well to the show. It's a pleasure to see you. A little intro, a little background.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kyle and Elena. I'm Alessandro Marianantoni. I grew up, quick background, I grew up coding. I spent a lot of years coding software and pretty much anything in the 80s and the 90s. Over the last 20 years, I've been here in Los Angeles, where I'm based. I worked as a researcher for half of these 20 years at UCLA, and working on a variety of applications related to entertainment. I have to say, half of those years on building management systems. So industry, something that we, at that time, we were already calling industry 4.0. And specifically on a variety of applications related to training, augmented reality for employees and specific personnel developing new skills. Recently, over the 4 years, I'm working on an accelerator, an incubator, and hybrid version of incubator accelerator program here in Los Angeles. And with my partner, Noble Dracon, I'm building a $40 million fund for our accelerator.
Wonderful. And welcome back to the show. And last but not least, Ilian, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. A little introduction, a little background.
Thank you, Kyle. Good some time of the day to everyone, to all the time zones watching us. Thank you, Elena, for the invitation. Glad to share this session with Alessandro and Gianpaolo. My name is Ili Velder. I'm speaking right now from Lisbon, and you see that some sunshine is reflecting my background. Almost 20 years in financial world, investment banking, project finance, later on corporate ventures and corporate financing. Last 6 years I spent in digital transformation of financial institutions and investment into digital transformation, and currently acting as the partner in Basic Hall Partners, which is the pan-European 100 million euro B2B fund, and our primary focus is specifically the digital transformation of leading incumbents in manufacturing in Industry 4.0. That's where we see lots of opportunities. We do operate from 4 major locations, from London, Munich, Luxembourg, and Lisbon, and we are having the pan-European approach. Back to Kyle.
Wonderful, guys. It's a pleasure to have all of you, and we're definitely got the spread in terms of expertise and also location. So I want to dive right in with our very first question, and a question I like to start with is just, what is the current state of Industrial 4.0? And the reason I want to ask that way is mostly because some are still trying to figure out what Industry 4.0 is. For many, this is a term that's used within industry and not very much talked about. It's broken up into different subsectors, but there's so much happening in this. So Gianpaolo, let's start with you. I mean, in terms of Industry 4.0, what is the current state of things as of today?
Well, I think you have gave a pretty good definition. I think it's Industry 4.0 is more of an ambition, a global feeling, rather than a specific single item. So definitely there is a trend in the market, for recombination of certain productive factor to get blended with digital transformation and the adoption of as much technology as possible. All of this with the hypothetical view to rendering services and our products in a most efficient manner on a global basis. On the other hand, the turbulence that we're going through shows that there's a market sentiment pointing south. There's research recently published by the intelligence unit by The Economist, a UK magazine, and you see that the survey really reveals that most in the business world, not only in Europe, but also in China, the US, and other parts of the world, are still pretty pessimistic about having any recovery for the balance of the year, so in fourth quarter. Whether we'll see that in 2021, well, remains to be seen. For sure, this is not a war, so recovery in certain aspects might be pretty quick. But I would think that it's pointless for us deal makers and operators to discuss whether we're going to see a V-shaped or a U-shaped growth. I think that we need to navigate by sight, which is a little bit difficult because now we're all used to fly instrumental. And now we got to resort to fly by sight, and we're all certified pilots. I know haven't been trained for decades to fly instrumental. In this period, we'll have to really navigate very, very attentively. And but again, I think there's a lot of space for optimism, and in moment of crisis, that's where the best entrepreneurs can come up with a sparkle and produce, great innovation and also generate significant revenues for for themselves and for the stakeholders. So that's what I see.
I think you're spot on. I mean, this idea of digitizing and digitization of just everything within that industrial sector, we're really starting to see new companies arise, new business models. I mean, some companies that once thought, this was kind of a dying moment for them actually turned into a thriving moment for them, right? More corporations are trying to figure out how to digitize the entire undertaking of what is considered Industry 4.0, and what was already being worked on is now greatly accelerated over the past 12 months and then some. Iliad, to you, same question. What are you seeing as the current state of the Industry 4.0?
Thank you, Kyle. So I will start with the statement that you just mentioned, that for many industrial companies, this period of time, I would say this era, has become actually the moment of opportunities and the moment to rebuild the thriving business. Recently, there was a survey published which actually addressed to the CEOs of industrial companies, asking them a simple question. How inclined are you to accelerate the digital transformation of your company? And 75% versus almost 45% in comparison to the previous year replied that they are very much inclined. And I believe that this is a critical moment in their thinking mentality and in the readiness to make decisions. Because we could imagine how hard it was to make those decisions even a year ago, to start the transformation of many aspects of manufacturing businesses, be that supply chain, the logistics management, the operations. And all of a sudden, in 1 week, companies had to make even more complicated decisions: how to operate remotely, how to provide distance maintenance to the equipment, how to provide distance services to the complex equipments, which might be located or diversified in different geographies. So I think that this nice anecdote about who is currently managing your digital transformation, CEO, CTO, or COVID-19, has actually put a practical perspective. The decisions are being taken right now, and we are seeing this in the growing interest to startups that are bringing solutions to the pain points that has become a legacy of industrial companies and manufacturing companies. We see that in their growing interest of manufacturers on actually accelerating and really putting a strong hand into adopting these new technologies into their ongoing operations.
Absolutely, making those decisions, as you said, now versus even 12 months ago. I mean, it's two different worlds, right? In some cases, it could be survival versus thrival. But also you have to make that decision now, or else it's game over. You don't have that time as companies once did. And Alessandro, to you, same question. What are you seeing as the current state of Industry 4.0?
Yeah, what I working on technology for so many years, and then now exposed to a great, deal of opportunities with the startups. Still, even if it's we work with early stage startups, still a lot of opportunities, especially during a period of crisis like this one, right? I also remember about 10 years ago, right, with the previous financial crisis, there were a number of opportunities that also touched with the company I was working on, the project I was working on. So somehow, fortunately for us working on innovation and at the, let's say, early stage of a business during a period of crisis, not always so dramatic, right? There are lots of opportunities. There are lots of startups that came up that had the opportunities to regroup and came up with solutions to specific problems. And something that Gianpaolo and Ilya touched before, the Industry 4.0, the way I see it, is not something extremely innovative for somebody that has been working inside the, let's say, from a development and research point of view. I mean, it's a very blue or cloud of names that we heard already, like artificial intelligence. I mean, now they're saying human augmentation, which essentially could be AR or some versions of VR. I'm talking about cloud computing. Now we're using more sophisticated terminology related to distribution of data, like edge computing, or definitely robotics being there already. Internet of Things, so we're using it less and less, and instead we're talking more about in Industry 4.0. But at the end, it was the essence of this new trend, I would say. So it's a very blur cloud of a number of technologies that all together synergically are trying to solve specific issues in different fields, not only in manufacturing, right? So I briefly mentioned about we're being exposed to startups that are using AR to train employees into specific situation, into specific situation of servicing complex apparatus. And then this led me to think about, you mentioned maybe before, new business models. So these large apparatus are not just sold anymore, but they're also gave away as a rental. So it's interesting how the synergy of technology and opportunities creates also new business model. From my point of view, I'm always really excited, and probably because I'm always too over optimistic, I see a lot of opportunities, a lot of young founders coming up with very exciting solutions and ideas.
Well, so let's talk about the opportunities. I think we're all there with you, Alessandro. But you know, as you mentioned, we went from talking about Industry 4.0 to then dispersing it and talking so heavily on IoT, connected devices, the connected world, to edge, to robotics, to all of these pieces or components that make up to it. But when you mash that all back together, one, there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be issues, and there's going to be opportunities. So in your mind, let's start with you, Alessandro. Where are the opportunities that are existing in the Industry 4.0? And then we'll get to the roadblocks, because I think that is a very big, important topic. But right now, opportunity-wise, where are you seeing areas of opportunity?
Yeah, so recently we are being exposed to a great deal of software solutions that are mainly operating and optimizing the interconnection of these technologies. And definitely it's in the big data. So how to process all the data that these other technologies are capturing. So sensor networks, IoT, what do we do with all of the data? So definitely you can also look at this from a workforce analysis, and we see that many companies are desperately looking for data analysts, right? So I see the opportunities for me are always in cross industries, cross multidisciplinary. I really like to see the whole thing together as a whole, more like an holistic approach to, in this case, to Industry 4.0. Definitely, there's a lot of opportunity in the data analytics. We are collaborating with a group in Los Angeles, and they're training like thousands of students and no more younger students into the field. And within this group, there are a number of great startups, a great concept. We also work actually, and probably I've mentioned already, with companies in automation. Definitely it's part of my technical background, but it's where we also see a lot of opportunities as investors, as accelerator program. We recently worked with a pizza kitchen automated company. So they making actually vending machine looking like systems that are cooking pizzas in 3 minutes. So with a patented oven, very specific one. They have a warehouse also in Los Angeles. I've tasted it. I definitely have to say that it's a great pizza. So we see a lot of opportunities in this kind of automations in the food supply, of course.
Yeah, the food industry is very fascinating, but automation, this is actually something that is key, because the Industry 4.0, again, packaging it very big, automation was the dream in some cases, right? Or the expectation of where the future would take us, that everything we did from manufacturing to creating actual products would all be automated, and that it would be done not just through software, but also hardware, being the robotics piece of this as well, leading into the logistics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll come back to some of the roadblocks that may exist there. But Iliad, I want to come to you. You've got a corporate background, you know, in corporate venture. I mean, what are you seeing in terms of areas of opportunity, both from your experience, but then maybe some of the corporate venture experience as well?
Well, Kyle, great question. The first illustration that I wanted to give is that again, based on my background, I was really surprised to see that a large Eastern European bank managed to go 90% on remote operations in 1 week. And that is a great example that is a great example of agility and readiness to change. And I'm sure that many companies had to make similar decisions at this moment. So everything which is related today to better quality of remote services is definitely a huge opportunity, because back in March and April, when companies had to make those very quick decisions, they were choosing from what was immediately available, from those solutions that were easily integratable. And they realized all the pros and cons, all the problems, and all the kind of user experiences in remote management that they had to experience. So now they can make a better informed choice. And this is definitely an opportunity for incumbents, for big players, for software integrators, but also for those who are just beginning to provide those services, and to rethink and build that better service based on the experience that people gained over the last 4 or 5 months. This is number one. Number two is I would reflect on Alessandro's point. So definitely data scientists, but specifically data miners and data modelers are in a huge demand right now. Because, I mean, it's quite obvious that one of the core pillars of Industry 4.0 is enormous amount of data that is being collected all around us. But the question is what to do with this data, how to monetize that. It's very simple to say we'll collect the data, we'll get some sort of the population of data, and we'll build a model. Fantastic, go build a model. But then the question is, what is the validity of your model? What is the accuracy of your model? What is their error level, etc., etc. So that part of actually putting that data into action and bringing the value is a huge opportunity. And we're seeing a lot of startups currently addressing that issue in actually building really sophisticated models, but not only, I would say, the model within one business or one vertical. Most importantly is, again, in this interconnected world, to make the data be able to apply to different benchmarks, to apply to different data streams, and to be able to kind of cross-check one versus the other for better decision making. It might be the same data coming from financial institutions and logistics companies, from financial institutions and transportation, from financial institutions and manufacturing. So because all this data is very much interconnected. The other part is to make that data enrichable in terms of using all the opportunities that APIs are giving us right now, and all the open channels that we might be using today. So I would say that these are the big areas, but I think that it's also worth mentioning that every single part of operations of manufacturing company, be that financial management. I'm speaking specifically about, for example, account receivables process, which might be managed in much better way all along the supply chain that the company is operating. Be that marketing, be that talent hiring and talent training. We can only see that 1.5 billion students globally had to go to study online in March. But we have forgotten how many people, how many employees had to go to online training, professional training at the same time simultaneously. So that's a huge opportunity to actually provide a better service in corporate education, also related to manufacturing and industrial businesses. And so I mentioned marketing, talent resources, talent hiring, and also, of course, the remote maintenance. Remote maintenance, especially of complex, of sophisticated equipment, which gives an opportunity for great mixture of technologies, be that AR or VR, IoTs, and platform management. So let me stop myself here.
You were just on a roll. I didn't want to stop you. I mean, all of us I'm taking notes over here the whole time. I'm like, this is exactly what we're seeing. I mean, this is true to form. Is again, this shift was in bits and pieces, and now it's been forced. Some for the good, and some we're going to get to is maybe not so good. But I mean, Iliad, you're spot on. And Japalo, I want to come to you. I mean, if there's anything else in terms of areas of opportunity, but furthermore, on furthering Iliad's point of, where things have kind of shifted.
Yeah, again, I like to restate, and maybe I'm repeating myself, Industry 4.0 is a sort of a zoo. If we take it as a whole, it tells us nothing, because really we would come up with a zero vector resulting out of the global analysis of different industries in different geographies with different sizes and maturity stages. So the reality is, I think we gotta get a little bit more granular and go maybe by industry sector, go by verticals or by geographies to get a better understanding whether or not we are business person or investors. Still we need to do that in order to make sense of what's going on. I think not all the rate of adoption of technology depends to a degree by the rate of conviction that entrepreneurs have in adopting that particular technology. And I've heard what Ilya said about the banks adopting quite quickly, the smart working. But I can also tell you that the global banks, and scores of other multinationals, not to mention small and medium-sized enterprises, had a very tough time, coping with the immediate adoption. Basically, a lot of those companies have been paying till December only lip service to the fact that digital transformation is an integral part of our life. But actually, only when the tsunami came, they began to run for the hills. Basically, they were back, to the wall, and then they realized that they had to do it. So you see that there's not been, I would say, a proactive adoption. Has been a sort of a forced adoption led by the events, by the catastrophic events that we've seen in the first part of the year. Doesn't mean that, of course, it wouldn't go better and better as we move forward, because, of course, by now, I think even the most skeptical of the entrepreneurs would have realized that without a certain degree of technology, their companies will simply no longer exist. There's not going to be a company that's not a technology company now. So that what this gives to me as an investor is an opportunity. I would speak about what we call arbitrage, because of course there are a lot of inefficiencies in the market because of this different perception and rates of adoption by the different companies and entrepreneurs that for savvy investors, sophisticated investors, but also for technologies that are looking to blend their know-how with third-party intellectual property rights, that are an infinite number of permutations and combinations. Really, it's a factorial number of opportunities that this market is now creating because of this misalignment on a global level of what should have happened, and it's happening, but it's not happening the way it should have happened to make it seamless, really. So again, when the sea is rough, you see, the skilled sailors, and this is a rough sea as any, and you'll see the real skipper here, and there's a lot of opportunities. Even on the entrepreneur side, as I say, there's an opportunity to select, cherry pick better suppliers, to extract better terms out of their, supplying line, or even with the clients. There's a lot of opportunities up and down, east and west, to streamline operations, to increase margins, and to increase efficiency, which it should translate at the end of the day in a possibly better quality of life for us all as consumers, because this is what technology at the end of the day should do, to just make us live better, be it from the healthcare side or from the mere technology side, make our life easier, more comfortable, and even companies should become more manageable. What I also see is that regarding roadblocks, big data, we got way more data than the capabilities of analysis by the owners of the data is there. So the reality is, of course, we have techniques, we have, I would say, historical knowledge that we can piggyback on and leverage on, but I think that we are far from even a mediocre point of efficiency in terms of the way we use big data, in the way we monetize big data, or in the way we could at least use it to make operations leaner. I want to just give you an example, which is outside of the boundaries of business. In Italy, a few days ago, there has been a very sad, what they thought it was a criminal case. Basically, they couldn't locate the corpses. They've been looking for the corpses for 10 days. And then someone, all of a sudden, from the law enforcement agencies realized that the drones had already filmed the area where the corpses were, and the drone films contain already the information from day 2 of the research. So basically, nobody has been looking at data that existed. And I'm just giving you this because it's the freshest example that I've seen, that we have technology there that does what it's supposed to do, because technology does it. It doesn't go on strike. It doesn't go on a sick call. It just works. But, if the humans aren't there with methodologies, processes, and last but not least, really, the human intervention to do something about it, it's just laid to waste. So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, and for, again, savvy entrepreneurs, and for good investors that want to come in and, and by making a contribution, reap also the rewards that come out of these contributions. Thank you.
Yeah, and with, I think you're all calling it out very well as terms of where things are, but let's talk a little bit about the gaps. So Giampaolo, you started on this, and I think it'd be great to continue with you, is, where are those areas of gaps that exist in Industry 4.0 that need to be further fixed or focused on? And then also with that, the roadblocks. Alessandro, you mentioned this as well, like it went from using multiple levels of vocabulary down to one or one-ish. But because of that, as you start crossing, and Iliad mentioned this as well, when you're crossing into different data from different industries over to different organizations, you're involving more parties in the kitchen per se, there's issues, and there's roadblocks that are existing to make this not as efficient as it should be. And it's not just because of what happened here in 2020, it's also because there's things that are lacking. There are problems that still exist. So Giampaolo, let's start with you in terms of where are the roadblocks, and how do we kind of move forward from some of those that exist to make this efficiency there?
Well, I say the eye of the needle, Kyle, is I would say, a development of an awareness by the industry players, by the stakeholders and the shareholders and the management, that things need to occur in a certain way. Because again, we have technology there that is already existing. Some of this technology has been there for quite a number of years, but the adoption of this technology has been extremely slow because people have troubles getting out of their comfort zone. So this is, the old lingo, and it happens time and again in human history. So we need to get out of our comfort zone, or at least those of us who felt that, technology was an option. Well, technology is not an option. Technology is an instrumental, essential part of running an organization, a for-profit organization nowadays. And but if it doesn't sink through the brains of the doers, it's very difficult, no matter how talented the scientists, the engineers, the researchers, the early adopters, and even the financiers behind those ventures. It doesn't pour. It's just like, the distillation of French coffee. It percolates very, very slowly. And we need to increase the rate of adoption, and we need to do so by making sure that the entrepreneurs of all size, geographies, and maturity do adopt because it's needed, not because they are with their back on a wall. That's point one. Again, point two, I think we need to, sometimes you don't see the forest for the tree. Take school, for example, and the distance learning. I mean, I see a lot of potential opportunities for companies that can address how to re-engineer, redesign the schooling system, because it's not enough to just send the kids home in front of a laptop or a tablet and things, and we got it done. This is just the, again, is not seeing the forest for the tree. It just acquiesces our conscience that we did it, but we didn't do squat, and we will see the result. I think half a generation down the way, when we see that we have educated our kids in a way that it was not, I would say, at the level where the education should have been. So I think we need to address those untapped opportunities and those unspoken issues, because again, it reminds me always of the Chinese proverb, what's happening, for example, in the education system, not only in the States, but also in Europe. And I don't know much about other parts of the world, but I'm following because I have a teenage daughter, and I'm following it. When the finger points to the moon, the imbecile look at the finger. We're looking at the finger for the most of it. We need to look at the moon, and we need to realize what is there. Is it a planet? Is it a satellite? It's definitely not a finger, and we need to, factor in what it is and act accordingly. The technology is already there to help. But again, if we keep looking at the finger, we are the roadblocks. So it's again, we're not part of the solution because we are part of the problem. Technology per se, it's pretty static. It doesn't shake us and steer us. We need to realize.
Yeah, and I think in terms of education, let's it's not just focusing on the personal side, right, on family, but it's also looking at the education of employees. There's going to be a little bit of a gap there as well, right, as things have shifted. So, Iliad, I want to come to you on the same question. Where are the roadblocks, and how do we push forward on some of these roadblocks to drive Industry 4.0 and everything in it forward towards that more automated or advanced definition of what it is supposed to be?
Thank you, Kyle. As education was mentioned just recently, let's think about it in relation with the, again, manufacturing companies and manufacturing business models as the main topic of our discussion. So as Gianpaolo mentioned, again, we are all experienced the homeschooling. We all experience the homeschooling situation together with working from home and doing everything from home. But there's one big aspect, and I'm sure it's the biggest roadblock, which is missing, is the methodology of online education. And this, we can have the online platforms. We can still have a teacher sitting on the other side of the fiber cable, but the main problem is that how to teach immediately that teacher to deliver the information and to deliver knowledge online, being taken out from the very accustomed situation of an academic classroom. He doesn't have an academic classroom and or a real-time contact with the students anymore. And this is so relevant to corporate education, when there's no opportunity to get everyone together, to provide the normal ambience and normal networking, etc., where you actually have to leverage to trigger all those new tools to be able to deliver that knowledge. And this is not only about education, it's about actually being honest in rethinking the business models that manufacturing companies are having today. Manufacturing is not an easy business. Whatever type of manufacturing we're speaking about, it's not. It's a business with a lean process. It's a business with a lean time. Sometimes it's very hard to make immediate decisions because the production cycle is longer, etc., etc. However, it's also about education of how to implement the continuous improvement, the continuous change into the business cycle as the daily routine, not only in crisis, not only in the extraordinary situation that we experienced in 2020, but how to make this lean change and this innovation adoption a normal part of business, to be able to actually get prepared for any crisis situation. And this year has taught many of us a lot of new things, how we what opportunities, what threats we're having, which roadblocks we're having, and which opportunities are coming to the market. So I think that the main let me try to drop a macro answer here. So I think that the main roadblock is always in the human mind, to be always ready to actually acknowledge the problem and to get enough courage to start looking for the solution of this problem. And another thing is to get another piece of courage to actually put their solution into action.
It's that mindset, as we've continued to mention as the theme throughout, the mindset of being prepared and making those quick, swift changes. And then there's the application of that as well, which is a different piece, but that mindset is absolutely spot on when it comes to any innovation technology within an organization. Alessandro, to you, same question.
It's I got so inspired by all the comments. I mean, that I have to refocus a little bit, because we touched on so many topics, right? We touched on education. I run an accelerator program, which main goal is to train our entrepreneurs. So we touched on the technology, how unorganized and inefficient some of the solutions are. So let me try to make to say something meaningful. I've been working with not meaningful from my point of view, right? I've been working and collaborating with many other engineers in the past. Something that we as a technology creator, the innovator, developers are very excited with is to just develop, right? You have an idea and you're just getting crazy. And I believe you also, Kyle, share that you were early developers, so you may have this craziness as well, that you have an idea about a solution, a specific technology, a specific implementation, specific piece of hardware or software, and you want to jump right on doing it, right? And this kind of disease is affecting a lot of people in the technology field. And still now, I mean, after many years of working in this arena, I talked to founders that are applying to our accelerator, to our fund, and I started having conversations with them. And I noticed, yeah, it's a great piece of technology, really sophisticated, efficiently done, lean, everything. And then we can't really understand what is the specificity of the problem that is solving. It's not. So I'm trying to say that essentially technology is great. We get a great deal of excitement out of it, but sometimes it's not human compatible. So this is why, I mean, it's a well-known approach, human-centric design thinking approach that we use at our accelerator, which start from the problem, not anymore from the technology, like I used to do like 20 years ago, even before. So we have to have tools to look at the problems, right? So it's more like an anthropological study than instead of from my experience, from the knowledge that I have, right? So I see that also we touch the education. So I grew up and with this knowledge-based kind of education, right? And this is also for business in the business world, in the manufacturing world, in any form of training, we're still kind of relying heavily on the knowledge-based education. What we just because we created the program we run, we wanted to reverse that. And in order to reverse that, there's only one way. You have to change the way you think, or you have to adapt. Like, we can say this in many different ways, right? So you can be ready and adapt your mind maps, your mental model. You have to be able to see things and readjust the tools that you have so that you can actually start producing meaningful solutions. Of course, it's something that we all touched, and it's about to be outside of your comfort zone, to be, navigating on uncharted waters, and all of those terminologies. And limits are definitely in our minds. But there's a process to get there. There is a process that is done with specific analysis, that is done with learning process that for example, yesterday we were restructuring some of our future programs with our lead business coach, Scott Hindle. And he was mentioning a quote that says like, knowledge is passive, learning is active. So it's not something easy to do. At the end of the day, we don't like to do complicated and difficult tasks, right? So learning is definitely something that requires a lot of effort. And learning what is the right approach is not always, an easy task, especially when everything the more we go on, everything becomes a software issue. So that's also what I've seen from my angle, right? We were talking about Industry 4.0. When I started working in this field, I noticed that all the people, engineers, and everybody involved in that field were still thinking in an analog way. They were still thinking about signals, analog signals, and doing things definitely not that automatically. Something that I learned is that we had success in those fields, in that field specifically, because I was developing software. So, and it became, we demonstrated, not only me, but Siemens, Philips, and all the big corporations, that it's sooner or later, a lot of these issues will become a software problem, right?
Very true. Very, very true. And gentlemen, I apologize. We're at the top of the hour here for the lightning round. So I do want to make sure you guys each get your closing thoughts in as we come to close. And you're all spot on around this. And again, the overarching theme is that there's so much more that can be done here for those that are tuning in. The opportunities are vast and great as well. And if you're looking at the software side, or you're looking at automation, you're looking at the education, the methodologies around this, that's where you should be focusing as well. And so, Alessandro, I'll start with you, and then we'll come back around. I would love to get your closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you here as well, so that they can continue this conversation, because I know you do focus on this at the M Accelerator, and also this would be a great conversation that you have a ton of knowledge in as well. So quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I love to share everything that I learned, all my experiences, and that's why we built a training program, an accelerator. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Alessandro Marianantoni. That's probably the easiest way to reach me out.
Wonderful. Giampaolo, to you, where can closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you?
Yes, I think successful companies navigating the 4.0 blue waters, because those are blue waters, could be successful by adding a mechanism into their companies, which I would call like a delay system, kind of what we had when we had CD players that would, take the sound when you hit the bump on the road with your car, but you wouldn't lose that particular note of that particular vocal point. There's an embedded delay system so that you have the latency and you can survive. Because in this moment, companies have to resist until the status quo ante of the globalization does return, because it will return. We can't do without it. And of course, companies that have embedded in their operations the quote unquote delay may be better suited to pass these traits, and even maybe become either a target for acquisition or become an acquirers themselves. And in terms of where you could find me, well, you could find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Giampaolo Parigi 1 as the digit 1 at gmail.com. Thank you very much. Back to you, Kyle. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Iliad, to you, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Thank you so much, Kyle. First of all, thank you for everyone's attention till now. Hopefully something was found useful. Thank you, Alessandro and Giampaolo. Should any of our listeners be having a startup solution that refers to B2B sector, please feel free to go to basingcoalpartners.com and tell us more. And when it comes to myself personally, I'm very open to, again, sharing thoughts and sharing experiences to foster the startup growth, especially in their areas of competences and areas of concentration. And the best way to find me is Ilya Velder on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And gentlemen, all, thank you so much for joining us today. And to you, our audience as well, thank you for tuning in. If you're an investor listening and would like to be on a show like today, do reach out as a startup as well. We'd love to have you on our stage to present to us, to Iliad's point, and also to our live audience. If you like what you heard today, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, do reach out. We'd love to hear from you. As all of our investors and panelists said, they are available 24/7, 365 online. So do reach out to continue the conversation as well. And also a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day. And we'll be back here with, as I said, a double episode here in just a short little bit to continue on a few of the topics that were mentioned earlier in today's discussion, maybe one surrounding education. Thank you, Alessandro. We'll see here in just a few minutes when we come back. I'm Kyle Licott, your host. You can find me everywhere. Thank you, Iliad, online